Welcome everyone, I'm GWFawkes and it's February 23rd, 2018. Welcome to the Model Gaming Show Live. Want to dig into tonight's topics real quick. Just three major things I want to talk about. Slow news week, but I think they're important. And again, I want to apologize for last week. If you're not looking for something political, I just think last week needed to have that. And unfortunately, again, I'm going to touch on something else political in video games this week. But I'm going to try and keep it brisk and moving and as fast as possible. This is going to be a little bit of a shorter show. So the first topic I want to discuss tonight, new game release this week, is Metal Gear Survive. Really, there's no finished reviews on it. It was released to the public on Friday. A lot of game outlets had it on Tuesday, releases on Friday, releases tomorrow. And from what I've watched, and I watched quite a bit, and I read a lot of impressions on it from people that I trust, and it just seems to take the Metal Gear name and a few items here and there, basically using the Fox engine, and take it and exploit that name, and it's kind of in Metal Gear in name only. There's some Fulton things, there's the general look of it and the way it plays, but frankly, it looked boring. Maybe that's not the case. Maybe it's more fun than it looks. I thought there was some cool designed, like there's a giant creature that roams through the area. I thought that was really cool. But overall, it looks like you're gathering and inventory management and building fences and stabbing people through those fences. And it looks, one, not like my kind of game at all, but it looks boring. And this is Konami, because they now have the Fox engine. Just, hey, let's throw out something that's Metal Gear, and people hopefully buy it. But I think that people that are fans of Metal Gear know it's $40, and it doesn't look that great. Metal Gear Solid 5, for all of its faults and its non-ending, was an excellent game. Excellent. I'd give it a low 9, easy, or at least a 9, right? Personal preference. I played that for a shocking 70 hours, and it felt like a lot less than that. So that's when you know you're having a good time, is that you look at the final end count and realize you played way more than you thought you did. Not much more I want to say on that topic on Metal Gear, just that Konami doesn't really seem interested in making too many games anymore, or they're making these pachinko games and whatnot, and it's kind of sad because they have such a wealth of video game history and their library is great, but they really don't have anything else. I wish that they would take the Fox engine and just remake Metal Gear Solid. I know that seems like blasphemous or something, but that would be my wish, is you take that and you make the first Metal Gear and the second Metal Gear in this new Fox engine, and I think a lot of people would be happy. The next topic I want to discuss is Sledgehammer Games. A lot of mix-up at Activision right now. Excuse me for one sec. A lot of mix-up at Activision right now, I think, with what happened with Zampella and West with Infinity Ward. They didn't want to happen to the co-founders of Sledgehammer Games. They made Dead Space. I'll give you a little background first. So the two guys are Michael Condry, and Glenn, I don't know if it's Schofield or Schofield, there's an H in there, I think it's Schofield, and Michael Schofield, started Sledgehammer Games back in the late 20-aughts, I think that's what you call it, 20-aughts, and they made Dead Space. Or when did that game come out? It's 2018 already, holy crap. So, they made Dead Space. Then they pitched Activision on a third-person Call of Duty game that they were working on. They had been working on that for a while, and then Zampella and West had their blow-up at Activision and left, and Activision came to them and said, do you want to make Modern Warfare 3? We really don't have anybody else to make it. We need help. And the remaining people from Infinity Ward and Sledgehammer Games made Modern Warfare 3, and I think that's the highest grossing one, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's the highest grossing Modern Warfare. Could be wrong, it might be 2, but I think 3 is. And then they've now just released, not Modern Warfare, but World War II. And that got really good reviews, and it actually turned the slump that Call of Duty was in upwards. So it was trending downwards over the last couple of games, and it actually bumped it back up. Well regarded. It actually looks really fun. I haven't played a Modern Warfare game since Ghost, I think. And that took place in 70s Vietnam or whatnot. That was a trippy game. But, not Ghost, Black Ops, excuse me. And what I think Activision has done. So these guys have now been moved from Sledgehammer, creating Call of Duty games. Another designer has been promoted, Aaron, dang it, forgetting his last name. But I think what they've done is they've learned their lesson from Zampella and West, and they said, hey, these guys are great, they've done really good work for us, and we're going to promote them as now executives up in the Activision hierarchy, and we're going to allow them to create new games. And I think what Activision is doing is they're trying to create and let these guys create and figure out the new Call of Duty. It's hard to say what that's going to be. They could absolutely make and pump out a PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds type game, since that's what's hot right now. But it certainly seems like these guys have a lot of clout now, and they can do whatever they want. And that's cool. I'm always down for new IP and new games. Will something come out in the next year, 2, 3, 4, 5? Who knows when this is coming? But it's at least refreshing that Activision has acknowledged these two and wanted to keep them from, like, their studio from leaving. So you promote someone from within to lead that studio, and you hire these two guys internally, and you keep that internal. So you're not just doing what EA and Activision, all these companies do, is they buy these new studios, have them make a game that they didn't even want to make, and then you get rid of everybody. It's the most ridiculous thing. There's no point in buying that studio if you're going to do that. So I think that's good. This is coming from someone who doesn't really play Call of Duty games anymore. I actually would love to do a run-through of all the Call of Duty games campaigns. I really would, since I stopped at Black Ops. So I think once, maybe in a year or two or something like that, when Steam has a sale on their whole catalog, I'll go and I'll do a Call of Duty series and just do all the single player campaigns throughout. I think that'd be fun, and there's so many games now. There's like a dozen of them, including back the First World War ones. That I think it would be really fun and interesting. I played a lot of World at War, a lot of multiplayer. That was one of the last multiplayer games that I played consistently, and that was damn fun. Truthfully, I had a lot of fun with my friend. Yeah, where the hit detection sketchy, and could you shoot a guy a million times and still lose? Yeah, but that's all part of multiplayer, right? That game was very fun, and I enjoyed time with it. I like the Call of Duty series. I know it's a yearly thing, and they pump it out. But I think Activision knows that's going to end at some time, and I'm glad that they're giving these guys an opportunity to create something new. And I'm also glad they promoted someone new within the company to head the new Call of Duty. Maybe they take it in a new direction for whatever the second or third iteration from now is going to be. So the last topic I want to discuss, again, gets political, but I feel like it's worth talking since the leader of our nation talked about it. And I'm just going to paraphrase. I don't want to directly quote him, but basically he said that, and we're going to have to look into video games too. I'm hearing they're too violent. You can take that even further and say movies are too violent. We might need to get on a rating system better about that. So first off, I'll give you my, not opinion on that, but on movies and television and stuff. I think America as a country, we're prude. We throw so much violence at movies and TV and video games and are so afraid of sex and the human body that it's this weird viewpoint, and I never understood it, to where we're so hesitant to show or express any sexuality when we're just going to show bodies being blown up and everything like that. Like, think about the PG-13 rating right now and what you can get away with in terms of violence. It's astonishing, really. And that goes for not just swearing and gore and violence. You've got to think of tone and atmosphere when you're talking about that too, and what we can get away with. In video games, it's just as bad, right? The difference for me between video games and movies is that, yeah, your parent can take you to go see a rated R movie, but you're far more likely for that parent to walk out with you and say, hey, this is too much, than for a parent to know what the hell a video game is. And you can just have, I mean, how many times? I've seen this so many times in my life when I've gone to a video game store and either purchasing a game or trading something in or whatever, and I see a parent buying a kid who's way too young to be playing that violent of a game, the mature game. And I just don't think, when a parent sees R, it hits something. But when a parent sees mature, they don't give a shit. They don't know what it is. Parents and, frankly, people my generation and older, in their 30s and older, don't know what video games are, how they are, what the landscape is. At least in my circle. Obviously, it's getting better, but I've got a pretty diverse, wide group of friends, and I'm like the only dude that plays video games at all. And that, just call that out of like 30 people. So that's kind of where we're at, is parents are still buying video games, right, for their kids that they're too young to be playing. Now, yeah, you can bitch and moan and say, a lot of people are saying kids shouldn't buy that because they're online Call of Duty talking shit or whatever. I kind of agree with that. Now, I have how do I put this? It's a weird relationship, but I have like a nephew that I have, and he's 15, and I've talked with him about it, and I've talked with his mom about it, and for Christmas, 15, yeah, and for Christmas I got him the latest Call of Duty. But that's after I talked with both him and his mom together, and she knows what they are, and he is more mature at this age, and he has other interests. It's not him playing Call of Duty all the time and he's invested. It's something he actually decompresses with, and he's very well adjusted. So it's obviously a kid and parent discussion that needs to happen that, frankly, 95% of the time doesn't. I can tell you, me personally, my sister was a little bit of a troublemaker, and so my parents, by the time it got to me growing up, I was just like a good, quiet kid, so they didn't say anything. And they knew I played video games and saw movies, but I was just telling my friend this, I remember my friend and I going to see Blade when it first came out, and that was in 98? It was something like that, where I was too young to see that movie, and when I walked out, I told my buddy, I was like, hey man, that like messed me up. And it did. It was very violent at the time, and it made an impression on me. Obviously, I watched it at home on DVD later, and I was okay with it, and I actually really enjoy the movie now. But every kid knows, every adult should know what their kids like and what their kids can handle. Okay, that's the thing is, you need to have these talks, and the reason that Trump brings this up is yes, nobody wants to talk about gun control in America. Nobody wants to talk about mental health. So they're just pointing a fucking finger at video games and movies, just like they did with Grand Theft Auto, just like they did with Mortal Kombat. The list goes on and on of every advocacy group and everyone pointing it at external factors other than, frankly, these kids are troubled, their parents suck, or they don't have parents, or their parental figures suck, they're not paying attention, they're not parenting their kids properly. And I believe this goes on in America a lot more than you would think. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating that movies and television and video games have gotten the brunt of so much. There has been no studies whatsoever done that video games actually relate to mental illness or violence or anything like that. There's no evidence whatsoever, and it's super frustrating because every friend that I grew up with that played shooters and violent video games are all extremely well-adjusted people, and we're all cool, right? It's like, just because you play a fighting game doesn't mean you're gonna go get in fights. Just because you play Grand Theft Auto doesn't mean you're going to commit Grand Theft Auto. It's basically, it's pointing a finger and deflecting the actual conversation that needs to be happening, which is our parents aren't doing enough. The parents and parental figures are not doing enough to educate, right? And for me, that's what it comes down to. That kind of sucks about the US is education is not held in high regard, unfortunately. Teachers are one of the most underpaid professions, and that's what's sad. And that's what it comes down to, is education and teaching and leading by example and recognizing that. I mean, for this case, for this Florida case, the signs were right there and available that this kid was messed up, and I wish he would have had help. I wish people would have recognized and spoke up sooner. I know that there was the FBI looked into it and whatnot, and they dropped the ball a bit on this. But at the same time, it's a bunch of things coming together, and it starts with education, and it starts with teaching and learning and having that talk of what's too violent on an individual basis. You have to know your kids, right? Like, that's why I had the talk before I even asked his mom. Okay, when I got this gift for him, before I even asked his mom, I straight up called him on the phone and I asked him, I said, hey man, like, is it cool if I buy you this game? Like, when I call your mom and I ask, is she gonna say it's cool? And he was extremely honest with me, and he said, yes, I believe she will think it's all right. We've discussed it. I've played the previous game in front of her, and she's okay with that. She knows me. And so when I called her, she verbatim said the exact same thing. That's super important, right? Sorry to drone on about this. It's just something that I'm passionate about and that I feel like America fails, right? So the tagline I'm saying is, are video games too violent? No. Neither are movies, neither is television. Because is it too violent for whom, right? Who is it too violent for? For an 8-year-old kid, is Call of Duty too violent? Yeah, probably. For a 12-year-old kid, maybe. Maybe they're okay. 13, 14, maybe they're okay. It just depends on the kid. Now, just like me in my Blade example, once I hit about Saving Private Ryan, I became a little bit desensitized. That didn't scare me because it was war, but I've become desensitized with violence, and that's bad, right? Now, I've never fired a gun. I've never wanted to, because that stuff, frankly, scares the shit out of me. But it's one of those things where it's a person-to-person basis, and we've just got to pay more attention. So thank you for joining me on this. I know we've had back-to-back discussions on politics and the political nature of video games, but these are really interesting times we live in, especially for someone my age, early 30s, who grew up not having cell phones, not having internet, and really was there for the birth of modern video games, internet, cell phones, technology like that, and not taking it for granted, since I'm a little bit too old to take it for granted. But yeah, it's a very interesting time we're living in because there's so many issues now, and everyone wants to point the finger at something instead of themselves. So my name's GWFawkes. This is the Model Gaming Show. Thank you for sticking with me. Thank you for watching. You can find me every Monday and Tuesday right now, and Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. Monday, Tuesday I'm playing games, although that's probably going to change. I have a segment called Brand Spankin' New where I play new video games, and it seems like all the damn new games are coming out on Fridays now. So I might have to switch that up a little bit and throw in whatever game comes out on either Tuesday or Friday and just go from there. Again, thank you for watching. You can catch me at GWFawkes on Twitter and Instagram, and Model Gaming Show on YouTube and Twitch. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate you picking up or catching this and discussing this if you do, and I will hopefully catch you next week. Later.